Salve Discipoli. We're going to continue, not finish yet, with the chapter 49 grammatical construction notes. So we started these the other day, looking at the chapter 49 story and picking out all these crazy little grammar constructions along the way. So I've actually filled a bunch of them in, but I want to give you some more explanation than just what's in the explanation column because it might not make sense without me saying something. So let's look at clauses with the subjunctive. I've mentioned that the subjunctive is something we kind of just skimmed, which is not a horrible thing. But here is the subjunctive in this little clause. This phrase can be found from lines 3 to 4 on page 239 in your book. So just this little clause. It's not a full sentence, it's just a clause. It means when that faraway lion saw him. Okay, and we have the subjunctive here, wedicet. It's the only verb in the sentence, so we can kind of guess if we know subjunctives or verbs that is indeed the subjunctive. Okay. So the subjunctive is just used in sort of strange but futuristic sort of sentences or clauses. In this case, it's called a cum circumstantial clause, which means you will see cum. All right, that's an important piece of the cum clause. You must have it. And I translate it as when. And it shows the circumstances that are necessary to have the main clause. So notice the ... After this clause, you will find the main clause. But the main clause wouldn't be possible without these circumstances. When that faraway lion saw him is the circumstance that needs to happen before the main clause can happen, right? Whatever that main clause is. So I said it's sort of weird and futuristic. So it's futuristic in that this needs to happen before the main clause can happen, right? The main clause is the part that's in the future. Stages of action. You've seen this a lot since chapter 1 in Ecce. They love to use these words. Like in the sentence, let's see, that starts on at the end of line 3, quem cum, and goes all the way to the beginning of line 5. You have a bunch of different clauses there. The first one starts with cum, second one was subito, and then day in day. So these are all starting new clauses and telling you the next thing that happens in the plot, in the action, in the story. So we start with when that faraway lion saw him, suddenly he, I need to find it. Suddenly he stands wondering, and then he began to approach the man slowly and tamely. So you need each thing to happen in the right order. So we use these words like when, suddenly, then. So when you see those in succession, those are talking about the stages of action in the story. The end of that sentence, there's lots of stuff in this sentence. You will find a form of apropinqua, but you've seen this word before. That's not the part that's weird. It's the way we translate it. They're showing you that you can translate the imperfect when you see that ba using the word began, if it makes more sense. And in this case, I think it makes it nice and smooth in English. So this whole last clause would be translated, then he began approaching the man slowly and tamely. You could also do the other imperfect translations. There's nothing wrong with them. Then he was approaching the man slowly and tamely. Then he kept on approaching the man slowly and tamely. Then he approached the man slowly and tamely. Okay, so any of them are fine, but began gives you just another option for the imperfect. Participial phrases. Here's my participle. Let's find that first. And then let's talk about this phrase. This sentence can be found on line 5. This is actually not a sentence. This is just a phrase that describes the subject that we haven't seen yet. The subject is later on in the sentence. So this section means, then wagging his tail kindly and in a coaxing manner. This can't possibly be a sentence. There is no actual verb, main verb, for what he is doing, the lion in this case. So then wagging his tail kindly and in a coaxing manner, that ... is waiting for a verb. So this is not a full sentence again. Okay. So moens is the participle, and it has this nominative singular third declension ending, and that's what tells us that it is describing the nominative singular somewhere else in the sentence. Ablative absolutes, we did talk about these last year, but we haven't talked about them yet this year. So here they are. They're lovely little ablative phrases. So that's the metu exonomati. The exonomati is important because it's the participle. You need ablative words, and where one of them is a participle to have an ablative absolute. And an ablative absolute is just giving more information about a sentence using an unrelated but useful phrase. Okay? So this one would be translated, now after being nearly paralyzed with fear, he does something. Now, being paralyzed with fear and whatever it is he's doing may not make logical sense to be next to each other, but in this particular context, it just gives us really important information telling us that the man who is being approached by a lion, no matter how tamely, is pretty scared. All right, and the last one I have here, this is old, very, very old, comparative adverbs. So when you add an ius, I-U-S, to the end of an adverb, that form just becomes comparative. So that means we're saying something is more attentively done. Okay. Attente with an E ending would be the normal adverb. You take that E off, you put that ius, and that changes the translation just a little bit. Okay, so if we do this over here, there's your corresponding words. Attentios to attentive, more attentively. That's the important part here. There we go. If I come back up here, I can highlight all the corresponding pieces. Now, when we're talking about a tail, which is caudam, we don't translate moens as moving, we translate it as wagging. It just makes more sense in English. Approaching, and then there's nothing, all these are already highlighted, and they are come as when, subito suddenly, day and day then. So I think we're okay on that one. Let me know about any questions you have. If you have questions, leave a comment on your Google Classroom and I'll get to it. Okay?